You know what? It is really okay if you don't want to do it right now.
You're listening to the Wellness Simplified podcast. Simple wellness tips to help you improve your life without turning it upside down. With your host, award-winning fitness instructor, nutrition coach, and wellness expert, Susie Phoebens.
Welcome to this week's podcast, and you might be asking yourself, it's okay for me to not want to do what right now? And I can't answer that question for you. Only you can answer that question, but there is something. There's something that you think you should be doing or you want to be doing that you're not doing right now. And there is a lot of talk out there about if you want something bad enough, you'll make time for it. And that's true. But it's also true that it is okay for you to want something, but not want it bad enough to do it right now. This is largely coming from a conversation we had at the Preserve Retreat at Blog Jam this past weekend, which was wonderful. One of the sessions was about writing a book, and it seemed like a lot of people in that room on Sunday morning have thought about writing a book. Some have gone as far as outlining or starting a book. Some people just have it floating around in their head. Now, personally, I would like to write books. I would ultimately like to write fiction. I know that starting out, probably we're looking at nonfiction. We're looking at a health and wellness book because that is my expertise. But it's not happening right now. I've even gone so far as I've had a writing coach consultation. I was on a podcast for that. And I have the recording. And it was really great. And it gave me some wonderful ideas about how to get started and what I should write about. But I haven't started. And the reason I haven't started is because, you know what? I don't want it that bad right now. And that's okay. It's okay to know that you have goals, but that you're not focused on that goal right now. That's why people have a 1 year, 5 year, 10-year plan. There are things that they want to do, but maybe they're not going to do them right in this moment. So I want you to think about whatever that thing is or things are that you want to accomplish that you haven't, and maybe it's kind of niggling away in the back of your head about how if you were more dedicated, if you really cared, you would get these things done, and you're just lazy and maybe you're not good enough, whatever dialogue is going on in your head. Maybe instead of saying those things, you could just say, you know what? I want to do this, but it's not important enough right now that it edges out some of the other things that I'm doing. Now, this episode is not intended to be a, oh, look at me, look at all the things I get done sort of thing, but I do get a lot of things done in the run of a day, in the run of a work week. I teach fitness classes, I do nutrition coaching for hours 4 days a week. On the other 3 days of the week, I still spend probably 15-20 minutes at least responding to client requests. I do a lot of things. I have this podcast. As I'm recording this, it is 5:40 p.m. I should be well into making my supper, but in order for this to go out in the morning, I need to record it right now. And I am putting my own food, and if you know me, you know how important my food is, down the list compared to getting this podcast out. So, it's going to be a short one because I do need to make my food. But I have to prioritize things. And right now, if I were to prioritize writing a book, that would mean I'm shutting off a section of my me time or my relaxation time with my husband, time with my friends, time that I need in order to be able to function and do all those other things that I do. So just because I want to do it, it's not fair to say that I don't care enough because I'm not doing it right now. It's just not as important to me as some of the other things on my list. If we put the idea of writing a book aside, forgetting that example because it's still work related, another thing I would like to do is get back into my painting. I haven't been painting for the last couple of years, and I would like to get back into that. And I haven't made that a priority. I know that, and I know that that is something that I would like to get back into. So maybe I will set aside a little dedicated time each week to do that. But that is still falling under relaxation, self-care for me because it's not taking away from those things. It's adding to it because it's another creative outlet. It's something that I enjoy. And for me to swap out, say, an hour of watching Netflix for an hour of painting, I feel like that is a pretty good swap out. Whereas me getting rid of an hour of Netflix so I can write instead of the computer for another hour, not so much. It's okay. It's all right for me to say, no, right now, my priority is on not adding more work to my plate. But if it's for something in a creative sense, then maybe I will find some time to do that. And like legit, if I haven't shown that I have painted something by the end of this year, please like give me a smack, because I really do need to do that. But when it comes to these extra projects, and for you, it might be volunteering for a charity that you care about, there's only so much time in a day, and it goes back to that episode about what's in your backpack. It's sort of the same thing. You got to figure out what's most important to you in this moment. For me, I need to focus on streams of income that are actually generating income. And sure, writing a book and selling it would generate some income down the road. But while I'm sitting there writing it, I'm not getting paid for anything. When I'm doing my nutrition coaching, when I'm teaching classes, when I'm working in my online virtual wellness studio with my clients, when I'm doing all those things, when I'm working on blog posts, when I'm working on this podcast even, it's income generating. And so I sort of need to focus on that. I'm not rolling in dough over here. I can't take a couple of weeks of those paying gigs and put them on hold so that I can work on something that may make some money down the road. It's just a matter of prioritizing. So my plan had been to work on a book over the summer. That did not happen. Why? I don't know. I can't even really tell you what I did this summer. I mean, I was working, but I think I took more free time off because I needed to relax, because I do so much stuff the rest of the time. That's perfectly valid. It was not important enough to me. I could have spent my extra time this summer working on a book. It was not important enough to me in that moment to do that, and I stand by that. Maybe you want to run a marathon, but the only time you can train is at 6 a.m., and getting up to work out at 6 a.m. sounds revolting to you. It sounds revolting to me. So it's not something that you care about enough right now to make happen. If it's something that you really, truly cared about, maybe getting up at 6 a.m. to train wouldn't be so bad. Maybe a year from now, that will sound just fine. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're less likely to hit your goals. It just means that right now in this season of life, that is not your priority. And that is okay. We need to stop self-shaming ourselves for things that we are not doing or things that we are doing, i.e. eating too many potato chips or watching Netflix too much of the time. And just, allow ourselves some space. There are people who have given themselves nothing but space for too long, and they need a bit of a kick in the pants to get moving again. But for most of you listening to this right now, I think that you probably fall into the first category, the category of people who are already doing a heck of a lot and doing some amazing things. And sure, there's still things on your list that you wish you were doing right now, but it is okay if they're not important enough to you right now to actually do them. And I think a really good example that I'm going to finish this podcast episode off with is people who are parents of small children. It can be easy to wish that you were doing all these extra things, but those toddler years, those young years, they go by quickly. It's all right if your priority is spending more quality time with your children and not out hitting the treadmill, out doing these other goals that maybe you want to do later on. It's okay if spending time with your kid is more important to you right now. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Whatever your heart calls you to do is what you should be doing. So maybe you want to do that thing, but maybe you don't need or want to do it right now. That is okay. I'm giving you permission to not do that thing until it matters enough to you that you're going to find the time to do it. That is it for this week's episode, because y'all, it is 10 to 6 and I got to make some food because I got to go teach Zumba. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I almost said recipe. I've clearly got food on my mind. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and maybe it will help you think a little bit differently about your aspirations and how you should be looking at them, and hopefully will help you beat yourself up a little bit less over maybe not working towards those aspirations right at this moment. So that is it for today's episode. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you next week.